In the video today, we're answering a viewer question because Byron H asks us, why is it sometimes called catsup and other times called ketchup? The two distinct spellings for what is today essentially the same condiment are simply the reflection of the evolution of nearly everyone's favorite French fry topper. Today, often disdained as lowbrow, when it was first conceived, ketchup was revered for the flavor that it added to foods. Initially a paste made from fermented fish guts, it was first recorded in 544 BC in important arts for the people's welfare. According to the legend, while in the course of pursuing his enemies, Emperor Wu Ti came across a pit filled with fish entrails and covered it with dirt from which a potent, delicious aroma could not help but emanate. For some reason, they actually ate it and learned to love it. And do note here that Worcestershire sauce has a similar, slightly stomach-turning origin, although in this case, it's still made pretty much the same way today. However it really happens, this food evolved into Ketchup or Ketchup. Over time, Ketchup migrated and made its way to Indonesia, where it became known as Ketchup. British soldiers were trading there by the 1690s, and it is believed they developed a taste for it and began exporting Ketchup from the East Indies during this time. Also in the 1690s, Brits began tinkering with the sauce's name, and Catsup, which according to the OED was a High East India sauce, first appeared, while by 1711 others were using the spelling ketchup. Nonetheless, it appears that both words were still describing a type of fish sauce, although by this time, rather than fish entrails, salted anchovies were what was being fermented. Anchovy ketchup quickly became popular in the West, and recipes for it can be found as early as 1732. By 1742, some recipes had even begun to put a definite British twist on the sauce by adding to the anchovies strong, stale beer, as well as mace, cloves, pepper, ginger, and shallots. Nonetheless, as anchovies were not always at hand, and necessity being the mother of all invention, cooks in the West began experimenting with different ingredients to form the base of their ketchups. Two that quickly became popular were mushrooms and walnuts. In 1747, Hannah Glass included a mushroom ketchup recipe in The Art of Cookery Made Plain and Easy, and it involved several steps, including salting the mushrooms, then boiling, straining, skimming, straining again, boiling with ginger and pepper, straining again, and then bottling the mixture with mace and cloves. Another 18th century variant, a family recipe from noted novelist Jane Austen, began with a paste of green walnuts, which were then liberally salted and soaked in vinegar, strained, boiled, skimmed, boiled again, with cloves, mace, ginger, nutmeg, pepper, horseradish, and shallots, and then bottled. Vinegar itself, a preservative, eliminated the need for fermentation here. By the early 1800s, tomatoes had been established in English cuisine, and so naturally they were being used as a base for ketchup as well. In 1810, Alexander Hunter, a physician in Receipts in Modern Cookery, provided a recipe for tomato sauce that called for first baking the tomatoes, removing the peel and seeds, adding chili vinegar, salt, garlic, and shallots. Then it was boiled, skimmed, strained, and bottled. Catsup had arrived in the United States in the early 1800s as well. In his Cook's Oracle from 1830, William Kitchener, also a physician, included several recipes for catsup that used alternately walnuts, cockles, oysters, and mushrooms as their bases. Interestingly, Kitchener also used the word ketchup throughout this book, but seemingly exclusively as a term for a mushroom-based sauce. Kitchener also had a couple of recipes for sauces that could have been but weren't called catsups: love apple sauce and mock tomato sauce. Both of these were highly spiced with shallots, cloves, thyme, bay leaves, mace, salt, and pepper, and the latter, which apparently used apple, also incorporated turmeric and vinegar. It appears that catsup was the predominant term in the United States through about the 1870s, when ketchup began to appear. Some authorities claim that the distinction between the two marked the differences in quality, as ketchup, the term used in Britain, was usually seen on expensive imported sauces. This claim is supported by the fact that Heinz sold two types of these condiments in the 1880s, a cheaper catsup and a more expensive ketchup. And now for a bonus fact. If you hold a traditional Heinz bottle at about a 30-degree angle and patiently tap the 57 stamped on the neck, eventually the ketchup will begin to flow. Physicists have another method, although it requires an explanation, of course. Because of its composition of tomato, vinegar, water, syrup, and spices, ketchup is a non-Newtonian fluid whose thickness and stickiness can be changed with force. Therefore, essentially all you have to do is shake the bottle beyond its breaking point, and the ketchup becomes 1,000 times thinner and therefore easier to pour. So I really hope you found that video interesting. If you did, please do give us a thumbs up below, and don't forget to subscribe. We've got brand new videos just like this every day of the week. Also, if you're looking for something else to watch right now, why not check out my other channel called Biographics? You'll find a link to that below. And as always, thank you for watching.